Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Health CEO Playbook, the show where we pull back the curtain on what it really takes to scale a thriving healthcare practice without losing your sanity in the process. Today's guest is a true franchise heavyweight, Tipton Shonkwiler, president of Accurate Franchising Inc. and United Franchising Consulting Group. With over 35 years in the franchise world, he's helped launch and grow medical and wellness brands across the globe. If you've ever thought about franchising your practice or buying into a health-focused brand, this episode is packed with insights, strategy, and the kind of wisdom that you only get from somebody who's been in this game this long and this deep. Welcome, Tipton.
Thank you, Brandy. Great to be here.
I am so excited to dive into this with you. I have so many questions. I could just nerd out on this all day long, but I'm going to start with something really simple. You've helped countless brands scale in this space. Can I ask you, like, what originally drew you to the world of franchising?
Absolutely. So I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, and I grew up around franchising and I grew up around medicine, ironically enough. Come from a family of 26 physicians, and in Columbus, Ohio, there's a pretty popular franchise brand called Wendy's. And that brand was started in Columbus. It was a patient of my mom and dad, Dave Thomas, and his wife, Lorraine Thomas, and the family. And so I kind of had the opportunity to see that brand build and grow and learn that it was a franchise, and always had an eye for entrepreneurship. And looking at that business model, I said, you know what? At some point, I want to get more involved in franchising because it's a great way to scale your business. And in America today, in fact, 85% of America's goods and services are distributed through a franchise brand. So I became very interested at a young age, and I was very intrigued by it. And I went into school, graduated, went into investment banking. I learned a lot about obviously franchising because of the Federal Trade Commission and the SEC tie-in, and embarked down the path, and I haven't looked back.
It's amazing. I mean, who knew Wendy's started it all? It's those darn Frosties, they'll get you every time.
That's right. That's right. And then again, just in the family that I grew up in, a lot of physicians, a lot of physician conversations around the table and on the weekends. And I've been always intrigued by seeing these businesses out there that could certainly scale, and the franchising vehicle becomes a great strategy for that.
Well, and on that topic, that would lead me to kind of what's next is like, how did franchise and healthcare become these obvious partners? Truthfully, in our space, there's such a segments of health across a variety of different parts of this industry. How did you get involved with health and wellness franchises specifically? Was there one that you started with, and how did that kind of come about?
Sure thing. So my first franchise company that I worked for was GNC, General Nutrition Centers, and obviously health, all the things that they have, nutrition supplements. Very interesting to me at a young age because I was in sports. I like to take care of myself. I like that aspect of just the wellness side, and I knew that I didn't want to go into medicine. So to me, this was a great vehicle to get involved with and learn the business, learn franchising, and also have the ability to learn a lot about supplements and nutrition and taking care of yourself.
And GNC's been around for quite a while. They're still kicking around, are they not?
They certainly
Yeah.
are. They
Nice.
certainly are. It's a brand that will continue to be around for a while because a lot of people, they can go online and they could do a lot of reading. They could do a lot of research, and certainly that works for a lot of people. But there's still a lot of people out there that want to be able to talk face to face, see the product, consult with somebody before making that purchasing decision.
Yeah, for sure. So answer me this. What are some of the biggest misconceptions that people have about franchising, in general, but in the health and wellness industry? I think there's a lot of kind of myths floating around and misconceptions. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think first and foremost, if you are going to be a control person, if you have that kind of, if that's in you, you're kind of that control freak mentality, so to speak. Maybe franchising is not the best vehicle for you to scale your business because in franchising, you're going to be partnering with somebody that is an investor in your business who's going to be taking your proven brand and model and now operating it on their own. And so sometimes, people get a little nervous with, hey, I'm giving up, my brand, or I'm giving up this to somebody that might do the wrong things and not have the right brand standards in place. So again, that's one piece. And then the other side I would say is, there's a lot of business owners out there that believe that, hey, if we're going to franchise our business and we're going to get our brand out there, there's a mentality of some of these future buyers that have it where, hey, just hang the shingle and the customers are going to come. it takes work. It takes getting out there. It takes building and growing the business in the local marketplace by having that community involvement, getting the word out there, and marketing your brand. It's not a hang the shingle and customers are going to come kind of business model. That does help. Brand awareness does help, but that individual owner, that franchisee is going to need to get out there and really build the business as well.
So basically, just because you buy it doesn't mean they're going to come. You still have to work the business, even though you've purchased a franchise or
That's great.
created a franchise.
Spot on. You're getting the playbook, you're getting the proven model, all the systems, the processes, procedures, which are proven. And now it's up to you to execute that at the franchisee at that unit level, right? So that's a key piece of this.
For sure, like any business. And also, you mentioned something important. If you're super controlling, you're an A type, and you're not going to be able to let some of the things go, it's going to be really hard to scale your business, whether it's even growth within your own existing location or scaling to others, because essentially, we're talking about others taking over your IP and growing it on your behalf, right?
That's absolutely the case. And I like to look at it like this. I like to share with our prospects and say, look, even though it's not your money on the line, even though it's not your human capital on the line as well, think of it like it is. Because if you think that way, and now you sell a franchise of your business model, you're not going to let them fail. You're going to work with them. You're going to coach, mentor, inspire, train them to be successful. Because if they're successful, you'll be successful ultimately in the long term. So it's a matter of getting that franchisee focused on this is their business, but it's the playbook of the franchisor, and it's up to them to execute, build, and grow that business at the ground level. So it's really important that the franchisor has that kind of mentality with the franchisees.
Well, and I think it's also true for that for anybody who's looking at franchising their business to understand. And I have clients that own multiple franchises of multiple location franchises. That the tasks that you do every single day become different. You're no longer just worried about running the operations and making sure the sales and whatnot are going well in your own clinic, but now you're the CEO of multiple clinics in a way as a franchisor, and your job is to support multiple operators underneath you. So your conversations are different. The way you're spending your days are different. True, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
the engagement piece is what I like to refer to it as, right? So the franchisor working with franchisees, making sure that engagement is there, proactive outbound communication, additional training opportunities for the franchisees, being proactive and reaching out to make sure that the franchisor is doing everything they possibly can to help that franchisee be as successful as they possibly can.
Right. So tell me a little something about what makes success in this world. So what's the difference between a franchise concept that's amazing and one that sizzles out? There must be some qualifying factors involved because we've seen ones that just take off and do amazing, and then there's ones that really it feels like there was a big
Mhm,
push
mhm.
behind them, and then you just never hear from them again. What are your thoughts on what makes a successful franchise?
Sure. So, in the medical space in particular, if it's a proven model, if you've got a flagship business model, if it's an aesthetic spa, if it's an urgent medical care, if it's dentistry, go down the list, chiropractic. If you've got a business model that has all the systems, processes, procedures in place, and you've got, I'll call it the secret sauce, you're doing something different. You're doing something that is attracting more patients to you. Maybe it's the patient experience. Maybe it's other things that they're doing throughout that process of engaging the patient and the stickiness, right? That patient now is going to continue to come back because they like this practice, they like this particular service, they like the staff. There's something different. That differentiation is key. So it's identifying that. And listen, here's the other piece of this is that oftentimes customers, patients, vendors, if they're asking you, hey, this is a great business model, are you opening additional locations? Is this something that I can invest in? Is this a franchise? Right? Those are all indicative of you've got something that other people want to see more of. So it's a matter of, as a business owner, looking at your business model, making sure you've got these unique elements in your business model. You're doing something different than the others out there in your space, and it's getting that attention.
And then, what are your thoughts on, being too main character heavy? So I think that would be something that a lot of our practitioners, certainly the ones that are in my world, I know some amazing practitioners that are running multi-million dollar clinics, but they're the draw, their personality and them as a person, everybody's being referred to them. And it's even hard for them to scale because everybody wants to see them. We call it main character energy in the world of, influencer, but it's also a problem when you're trying to have somebody acquire your business or scale your business. How does franchising manage that main character piece and separate it from the growth of the company, if you will?
Yes. So every great franchise brand has a great story about the founder, where the business came from, how it was started, et cetera. Why that founder, why the business decided to go down the franchising journey. So that story is going to be something that's going to pepper into the marketing side of this once a franchisor now is out there promoting that franchise. But it's difficult sometimes because when the person is the business, it's difficult to franchise that. I'll just contrast it to another scenario that's real life right now. There's a barber that does a really good job. He's got a nice little, boutique barber business. And he's got a lot of things that he does different. But ultimately, at the end of the day, he's really the business. So when you peel the onion on that business and you learn that this gentleman is the business, you can't replicate that exactly. And it's not even something that is close enough to be able to be franchisable. So some things you got to walk away from, right?
Right.
But at the same time, in the medical arena, if you look at the person, the founder, and you separate that for a second, you look at, okay, the services, the procedures, the business is ultimately going to be the franchise. That's what you look at through the lens of, okay, is this a franchisable business model? And if that part is, then it's a green light. But over here, it's a conversation with that founder, that owner, that, hey, look, this is something that you've got to kind of step aside with when you go down the franchising route. Focus on being that coach, mentor, right? That I talked about earlier, that person that's going to train others to build and grow this business that they know could be built and be successful because they've done it themselves. But they've got to remove themselves mentally and to some extent physically to allow that entrepreneur, that franchisee now coming in to build and grow this business.
Yeah, so it's almost like, preemptively, if somebody was thinking about franchising their business and they were feeling that they're the cog in the wheel, they're the main character energy, their goal right now, before they took any further steps, would be something to the effect of find a way to scale yourself out of the, majority of the care that's being provided. Maybe put yourself at the top, have associates under you that are basically delivering the same quality of care that you do and that you are their sort of mentor. And so that almost sets them up for success with taking that same model and plugging it into a new location because they do have the brand equity. Even though they're main
Mhm.
character heavy, they've got the brand equity, unless the name of the business is Dr. David, whatever, or Dr. So and so. But if you've got the brand equity and there's something there, you should be able to have a runway, I would expect, that you could sort of start doing that tiered approach so that you could scale it. Would you think that there's something like a timeline of or a structure that you could consult people on if they were in a situation like that?
Yes, I do. That main character heavy piece that we're talking about right now, that's something that they need to be able to share with a future franchisee to say, look, let me share with you my story. Here's what I've done. Here's what I've been able to do with this business model, this practice. And this is how it's grown to what it is. So, Mr. or Mrs. Prospect franchisee, you need to look at this and do the same things. And this is how it will build for you. And then you ultimately get to a point now where you're hiring additional staff, you're moving away from some of that day-to-day patient care, you're allowing others to come in and provide those services, provide that experience that's been so successful, but you've got to do it through building the team and getting the team to replicate that same experience.
And so it's almost like if instead of hiring a business coach, if you really wanted to franchise your business, you hire somebody like Tipton to come in and give you the roadmap. Am I wrong? Like, am I speaking out of tongue here? Like, would that be something that you would do? You could go in and say, look, here's the roadmap. We can franchise you, but you need to do this first, or do they need to figure that out on their own?
So part of what we do is we go through our total development process is 120 days, but the very first thing that we do as a company with accurate franchising is we do the strategic plan and the business plan for the franchisor. And that's going to really be us getting under the hood of the business, Brandy, looking at what makes this business build, grow, operate on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. What really makes this business different, unique, and what is it ultimately that this business is going to be from a franchise offering standpoint? And then once we conclude on that, we're putting a playbook together for what this franchisor is ultimately going to be. Has a 5-year growth forecast in there, has infrastructure in there, has the ways that that franchisee now will take this proven business model that's now going to be a franchise and implement it and execute on those things in the local marketplace to make that business ultimately grow and be successful. So that is part of what we do. And we ultimately give that franchise or client of ours that playbook, which is then shared with that franchisee. So they know ultimately how to build and grow this business and what to expect and when to start hiring staff. And, when do I need to start to pull myself out of this business and focus on the higher priority, which is building the business and building that location and building multiple locations possibly, and not working in the business like they once were.
I love that model. I love what you guys do comprehensively, Tipton, because, I talk to a lot of practitioners. It's been 15 years that I've been in the natural health space. So I deal with a lot of functional medicine, a lot of natural health practitioners, but a lot of people will say, like, what's the exit strategy here? And sometimes the exit strategy doesn't have to be you trying to find somebody to buy the goodwill in your practice. Sometimes the exit strategy could actually be franchising if you understand that you're still working in the business, but you're not working one-on-one with patients, but you can still scale the legacy that you've put into your community and help it grow in other ways. And I think a lot of people aren't thinking about it like that. They're thinking like, how can I retire? Or maybe how can I bring my business online? Because they're probably thinking kind of small with me being the person responsible for providing the care. But if somebody was really to open their eyes and think bigger, which is what I really want this show to be all about, your exit strategy could be franchising your business, could it not? I mean, are people doing that as an exit strategy from their business?
It's music to my ears what you're saying right now because it absolutely is. And again, it's about doing it the right way.
Yeah.
But think about it like this: like a practitioner right now, somebody that was in regenerative medicine, and they're providing all over wellness type services, anti-aging services for patients, clients. That's something where they could continue to grow it. They could continue to open location after location, put up their corporate capital, put up their human capital, and go one after another after another. Now, over here, a quicker, more efficient, less risk way and less expense way is to franchise it. And in doing that and doing that properly, you're ultimately building a long-term exit strategy. Why is that? Well, now as you're opening additional locations and that brand awareness starts to get more robust, and now you have more locations paying royalties to the franchisor, and you ultimately now build a network of franchise locations, that is something that is extremely attractive today, in particular, and more than I've ever seen it for venture capital, private equity, family offices, franchisors like ourselves who've acquired many franchise businesses over the past years because we see the value in it. You're acquiring a business that has long-term contracted revenue with their franchisees. Some of these franchise agreements are 10, 15. I've seen them up to 35 years for an agreement term standpoint. And that's very attractive again to a lot of companies out there looking to buy that kind of revenue stream. So point on this is from an exit strategy standpoint is versus a main street business that sells today for 2.5, 3 times net plus assets in the business. By the way, we own the largest business brokerage in the world, so I'm very familiar with that space. Franchising becomes a far more attractive business to sell. And companies coming in to buy those franchises today are buying them from a multiple of the royalty standpoint. So the annualized royalty. And it's a much higher multiple than what a main street business would sell for. Now, all that being said, you've got to build it the right way. You've got to be focused on the growth, the responsible growth of that franchise brand and getting it out there and really scaling it and getting it to a point now where you've got something that you could really sell and exit and have a big win.
I love that. I love a big exit win. I always tell people, look, build your business with the exit in mind, because at the end of the day, while we like to be altruistic and make massive impact, everybody is going to have an expiry date on how much they want to be putting into the universe on a daily basis. And if you can take the money that you make from your amazing exit strategy and put it to good use for the next segment or the next phase of your life, I think that's what happiness really means, that legacy left behind, but also that, family generational wealth that you can build. I think it's really important. There's a lot of women in this space, a lot of women clinic owners. I think that there's a lot of opportunities when women are empowered with lots of financial gain. They make amazing decisions for their family, for their communities. So I think there's a lot of impact that can be made when people are thinking big and thinking big exit strategies. So I love that you said that. Question for you. So what, in your experience, what separates or sorry, what are the signs that somebody's ready, like your business is ready to franchise? Do you have, I'm sure you have a qualification checklist, but if I was to be able to give people like three signs that your business is ready to franchise, what would you say to that?
Sure. So I always say there's no set rule that, hey, you have to be in business for at least 3 years. You have to have a net profit of X. You need to have 2 or 3 locations. It's really none of that. It's really, do you have something? Do you have something that is unique? Are you disrupting in the space that you're in? Have you gotten the attention from whether it's your vendors, your patients, clients, staff, friends, right, that are seeing this business, the community seeing this business, and they want to see more of it? That's a great sign that you've got something again that people are interested in and they want to see more of. Now, that being said, you hear flagship location of franchising, you hear pilot model franchising. That needs to exist. So when somebody has a business that they're contemplating franchising, at the end of the day, are the unit economics good? Is this a good performing business? Are there the systems, processes, procedures in place? Is this something that could be replicated again, where you're not the business yourself, but the business itself is one of, you can get more of these out there and you can have other owner operators building and growing these businesses.
Well, so I have another question for you. You've seen so many models. What trends are you seeing in wellness and healthcare franchising these days that, a smart entrepreneur would pay attention to? I know you and I have talked about it in the past. I nerd out on some of these new businesses that are popping up. We've talked about Stretch Labs and some of the
Mhm.
other cool ones that are coming out. Have you seen any models or trends that you want to share with the audience in healthcare franchising?
Certainly the weight loss right now, dovetailing off a lot of the industry and what you're seeing out there in the weight loss space. Regenerative medicine, certainly there's a number of different points of regenerative medicine overall that, somebody could say, okay, let me just focus on these 2 or 3 services or whatever, anti-aging, human, pause,
Like
hormone
optimization.
replacement,
Oh, hormone replacement.
hormone replacement therapy, HRT. The acronym, I always say the acronym and got to correct it on what it stands for. So the weight loss, HRT, the IV lounges are certainly popular. The chiropractic, as we talked about, Brandy, the stretch labs, as we talked about. Um, and then also, uniquely enough, right now, I've got one that's coming through our pipeline, and it's psychiatry. And you look at psychiatry and you look at how big it is, the mental health space, the industry itself is enormous. And if there could be a brand that's out there in the mental health space that could cut down on these hospitalizations, work with veterans, really help a lot of people that have these mental health needs, it's a remarkable brand at the core. But now to see more of these out there and these services out there throughout the United States with this franchise brand, I'm really excited about.
There's such a massive need for more mental health. You and I jammed on that a bit, but just post COVID and all the things, I think it's become so much less undercover and more obvious that we have a massive crisis on our hands and that the healthcare system that we have in place is not designed, and nor will it be likely in our near future to facilitate it. So I love that there are franchises that are going to be able to do that. And I think there's so many cool ones. People are really unique and interesting. And I love the creativity. I love the membership model. I'm curious, are the IV lounges doing really well in your opinion? I've run a clinic in my past. It's how I got into this space. We used to have 20 to 30 IVs a day. We had a couple nurses. We had a massive location. There was a ton of inventory. It's a volume-based business. Are you seeing those businesses actually doing well, or have we reached maybe a max capacity with those? What do you think?
I think max capacity, unless that business owner, franchisor, right, have added other services, and
Yeah.
that's just part of, for example, peptides. You see
Yeah.
that right now, that's becoming big. Dovetails very nicely with the weight loss or hormone replacement therapy, overall, regenerative medicine, um,
It's got to be
HBO
almost like
chambers.
a body optimization clinic as opposed to just focusing on the IVs, I think, if I'm not mistaken, because I know quite a few people that run IV clinics, and I hear about all of their struggles when they come to me for marketing and AI stuff, and it's not as easy as it seems, I think.
No,
Um,
if that's your lead in, you see some of the mobile businesses now in the IV space. Okay, that's different, unique because it's not having to go somewhere. And so you see that, and especially in Las Vegas. I mean, you see a
yeah.
lot of it, but nonetheless, I think that on its own is a struggling space.
It's struggling, yeah. So tell me a little bit if I'm an investor. So we've talked a little bit about franchisors and what they need to look for and what can be expected, but now I want to put on our investor hat and just ask you a few questions with respect to that. So what are the red flags someone should watch out for when they're evaluating a franchise opportunity in this space? And I say this with love. I have a friend that bought it's like one of those game escape room franchises, and she's really into it, and she's the right personality, and she's doing the social media, and she's really done a lot with branding. She's kind of an influencer type, and she bought into this, and she did a great job with it. But I also know people that have bought into franchises and are not maybe regretting or buyer's remorse. And so I'm an investor. I want to put my money into something that's growing in the healthcare space. What should I be looking out for when I'm trying to evaluate this?
I'd start with saying make sure it aligns with your overall passion and interest and things that you really have, the ability to make an impact in. Because if you bring that to the table, it's going to make that business a lot better. Second, I would say, you got to look at the business model. You got to look at the unit economics of the business model. Is there a path forward for you to build a good, solid business where you don't need multiple locations to make good money in that business model? We represent franchise brands. We own franchise brands where you don't need multiple locations. You can do very well with just the same location or a couple locations. And so it's looking at those unit economics. I think that's very important. Second, I would say you got to look at the franchisor. How long have they been in business? And businesses don't need to be in the franchising space for multiple years, but you got to look at their track record. You got to look at how this business came about. What does their support team look like? What are they ultimately offering in terms of that initial training and ongoing support? And what all are the franchisees of that business model going to be getting as a benefit? And is that franchise agreement written too one-sided where any smart business person that comes in looks at it and says, I don't see a clear path forward here. I don't see this as being viable and equitable. You want to look for that. You want that to be a viable and equitable business model for you to get involved with that business franchisor as a partner. And you would have some sort of sense of being an entrepreneur and being able to build this business, again, using the brand standards, using all the things that are from the franchisor and in compliance with those franchise regulations. But you've also got the ability to be creative and to enjoy this and really build and grow a significant business. And then the last thing I would say is you want to talk to other franchisees of the brand.
Right.
And if it's a very young franchise brand, then there's other things that you could do. But in a lot of cases now where you've got these franchise brands that have 15 locations, 25 locations, certainly you can talk to some of the franchisees and get a sense of would they do it again? What do they think of the brand? How is the support of the franchisor? Those are all things that are going to be important to a franchise buyer.
Do you see lots of, or is this a model? I mean, I've been invited to do a few of these myself, but a buyer's group where they go in together and buy a franchise. Do you have any opinions on that?
Yes, I see it. I don't
Is it
see it as
messy? It
often.
sounds messy. It
It,
feels
it,
messy. I
it,
haven't done it,
it,
but are you seeing success with that?
yes, yes, yes. So the answer is I've not seen a whole lot of it. I've
Okay.
seen the messes of it. And if you're going to do any kind of partnership, okay, you mentioned a group, but let's say if it's three partners, if it's four partners or it's two partners, you need to really boil it down and make sure that it's the right path for you. Because yes, it can get messy. And some of these work out brilliantly well, but I know a good number of these that don't. But to your point, the group where you've got more players in the pot, that gets messy.
So, I've got a question that's really focusing more on tech. I nerd out on AI, and I get hired by a lot of healthcare practices to plug AI and automation into their businesses so they can reduce, human capital lose or stop losing patients and scale in respect to that. Do you see anything in the franchise world adopting AI, new technologies, automations, that kind of thing? Or are we still a little bit behind when it comes to some of these larger multi-location businesses?
Certainly in the space of franchising, certainly in the space of healthcare, yes, we're seeing a lot more of it, more adoption of the AI in that particular business model. We're looking for ways to help to streamline the business and make it more efficient and obviously reach out to more customers and build the business ultimately. So we are seeing it. And just like with any disruptive technology, we're so on the front side of AI still. And it's remarkable to really look at it and say, okay, 4 years from now, 5 years from now, what will the impact be that AI has on medical practices and businesses in general?
Yeah, it's amazing, and Lord only knows it's changing so fast. But the fact that you can now have AI answer your phone and take over, triaging, reception, that you can really focus on speed to lead, where people aren't. I don't know if you've noticed this, but people don't want to wait for answers anymore. We have answers at our fingertips. We don't want to leave a message on a Friday and wait until Monday to get a call back. So it's kind of like who's the quickest person that can get back to me is going to get my business. And so when we look at, how that's going to affect large businesses as well as small businesses, I think there's some really cool things that are going to be happening. We'll probably have this chat 4 years from now and be like, what the heck? We had no idea. But even from what we were doing last year, there's been a lot of advancements. So it'll be interesting to see how some of these larger franchises adopt things like automating onboarding processes, marketing, AI for reception, and some of these other tools, because there's some kind of cool things floating around these days. So that's interesting, and I'm glad you're seeing the shift. That gets me really excited. So I have a couple rapid fire questions for you, and then I'll let you carry on with your franchising of the world. Rapid fire questions. One health franchise that's about to blow up. Do you have one for us?
Health and psychiatry.
Okay. One thing you wish every potential franchisor owner understood.
That they're in business for themselves, but not by themselves. And they've really got to implement that playbook that we talked about earlier, right? So that's the key piece.
I love that. Follow the darn plan.
Mhm.
Most overlooked cost or challenge in franchising.
Marketing budget.
Good one.
So you have to be prepared that once you get this business in play, you're rolling out a franchise offering, it's going to require getting leads. Those leads aren't just going to come from particular things online and such. Yes, that does help. Yes, it does help to get those leads at the business level, but you need to be prepared to have a marketing budget in place to generate leads for you to sell franchises or attend franchise trade shows or attend industry shows in the medical arena. Those are things that are going to help you get your business scaled.
And in one word, what makes a franchise irresistible to investors?
ROI.
Very well said. I love that. Let's be honest,
Yeah.
everybody at the end of the day is looking for return on investment. I appreciate your candor. You have been amazing. I am going to put your details below this video. So anybody who is on my channel and is interested in learning more about how to franchise your healthcare wellness practice, get in touch with Tipton. He is the man with the plan, the roadmap, the playbook, and the eight-figure exit strategy. Does that sound about right?
That sounds about right. I've seen it and there's more to come.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Tipton. I look forward to continuing our chats in the future and love to hear more about what you stay up to.